Welcome to the Potter Discussion.
Welcome back to the Potter Discussion. This is episode 113, and on today's episode we will be breaking down the character of Ginny Weasley. Let's do this. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to episode 113. Finally, we are back with another breakdown. I've been waiting for another one of these because Breakdown Draco Malfoy was actually one of the most popular episodes ever. And part 2 was up there as well. And it was just one of the most fun I've ever had on an episode, especially for a character like Draco Malfoy. So, to be doing another breakdown with Ginny Weasley, another very interesting character, I think, is going to be another great episode. If you're listening on YouTube and you want to find the full version of this episode, head over to your podcast app, search The Potter Discussion. That's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Overcast, Podchaser, or any other podcast app you have. If you are on your podcast app, you can go check out the YouTube version. Over at YouTube, just search The Potter Discussion, and it should pop right up. All right. Before we get into today's episode, I will remind you that the 2 links in the show notes below are still available. The SpeakPipe page link and the Google Form link for anything you want to hear or say on the show, or send me an email. My email is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. That is ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com, and I'm at ThePotterDiscussion on Instagram. Let's get into today's episode. I think a good place to start is just to get an overview of Ginny. Who is Ginny Weasley? Well, let's talk about that. I mean, if we get into today's episode and you don't know who Ginny is, anything about her, that would be a problem. And I'm sure there are some people here, even the most die-hard fans, who don't know everything about her. So before we get into this, I think we should just do a quick background check. Ginny's full name is actually Ginevra Molly Potter. It was Weasley before she married Harry, but her first name is actually Ginevra, and they just call her Ginny out of a nickname. She was born on the 11th of August, 1981 in Great Britain. She is a pureblood witch, an English witch, of course we know that. She plays Chaser and Seeker in Quidditch. She attended Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry from 1992 to 1999, just 1 year below Harry, Ron, and Hermione. She was in Gryffindor. During her first year, she developed a long-standing crush on Harry and came under the influence of the memory of Tom Riddle's 16-year-old self. A lot of stuff happened to Ginny, but that's just kind of, a basic overview. Ginevra Molly Weasley, the 11th of August, 1981. So that is a bit of background on her. I got this information from harrypotter.fandom.com. Great website. Go check it out. I'll leave a link to this page in the show notes. Yeah, so that's just kind of the technical stuff, the dates, and all of that. But now I really want to get into who is Ginny. Of course, we know who she is. I mean, that's a given. We know that she lives with Ron. We know that she is a Weasley up until she marries Harry. But who is she really? I mean, that's really the question we're going to be asking today. How does Ginny have an impact on the story, and what role does she play? And almost more importantly, what role does she think she plays? Because if anything, that's what matters the most, depending on what she decides to do, depending on where she decides to go. That's really where the story will go, and that's really why and how her character will get developed, just based on what she will do for herself. And on the note of doing things for herself, we have the fact that she was the youngest of the Weasley family, and the only girl. Of course, that is hard enough on its own, being the youngest of the family, but being singled out in your own gender, I think, is especially difficult. So I think with Ginny having to kind of make her own and not being able to follow the example of other people is really encouraging for her to not only, kind of speak out for herself and really stand up for who she thinks she should be. It also is kind of difficult for her because she doesn't have this herd to follow, and she kind of has to branch out and make her own path. So that's really the win-lose here. She has to make her own way, but she also has to make her own way, right? So it's difficult. Like, you're following footprints in the snow. You know where to go, but there's no work involved. And if you're not, then you make your own footprints. You walk your own path, but you do have to break the snow in the process. So Ginny really has this huge challenge in front of her of trying to successfully beat being who she is, being in a family of however many, that's like 90% kids that are like her and are just constantly kind of trying to one-up her and are just always above her. So I think Ginny is really trying to kind of break away from the group and make her own way and really show everyone that she is not who they think she is. She is a very different person, and I think she's trying to kind of show how she deserves to be treated with respect and has to kind of have this own aura around her that her family has to recognize, and honestly that she has to recognize too. Ginny is a really, really good person, and she can really do a lot of good if she tried, but she really had to struggle with realizing that for herself, because there's so many different things in her life that she was struggling with. Of course, being the youngest and the only female in the family, but also, like Jill, I'm a child, but also struggling with, her first year, like I said, opening the Chamber of Secrets and always being seen as, this younger, less successful version of Ron by Ron, and having Ginny's entire family just kind of hovering over her, especially Ron, when all the boyfriends that she had and all the things that she's doing and the friends that she had, especially with Luna Lovegood. She really went all out and really tried to make her own path and just kind of show the world that she was not another Weasley. She was Ginny. And Ron, I think, is another element of the story that we'll get into later, but I think just a pretty quick overview of Ron is he really made it difficult for Ginny. Ron and Ginny never really got along, and Harry was really the only common denominator between them. And without Harry, I don't know how well they could have survived together, especially just in the same room. But Ron and Ginny have never really had a great relationship because Ron is always there. Ron is always trying to make sure that Ginny is not in a relationship, that she's not, getting into trouble, and Ron is just hovering, just constantly there. And Ginny cannot handle that because that's what Molly does. That's what Fred does. That's what George does. That's what Bill does. That's what Charlie does. That's what Arthur does. Everyone is just there. And she just wants some space. So even at Hogwarts, that's really the getaway. That's really how she can escape. But with Ron hovering over her still, there's no way she can have a good time at Hogwarts, which I think is why Ron definitely made it a challenge for Ginny to enjoy her time. But I think they kind of did figure it out in the end, but I think Ron definitely made it a challenge for Ginny. But I think that's a pretty good introduction to Ginny, so let's get into the episode. What I want to talk about next here is about her role, about what role does Ginny play in the story, and who is she? Of course, there are these archetypes for characters, and there are these different roles that have to be filled. So who is Ginny? Who is Ginny in this mess of Harry Potter? Well, the obvious answer is the love interest of the main character, because of course that is where she ends up. But I think it's more than that. It's more than Ginny kind of just being there for Harry. I think Ginny is there not only for Harry, but with Harry. They are probably the two that are most alike on a much deeper level. Of course, Harry and Ron are, exactly the same, and Fred and George are just, of course win the contest. But Harry and Ginny are the most alike emotionally, if that makes any sense. They are both kind of like the bottom of the heap. They had nowhere to go. Ginny was at the very, bottom of her family, and she was just picked on by everyone. And Harry had no one else. He had no friends growing up. All he had was Dudley to make fun of him and beat him up, and Petunia and Dursley to just hate him. I mean, that's basically it. So they really can relate in that way, but they also were kind of sticking out, Harry for pretty obvious reasons, but also Ginny as the last Weasley, as the last Weasley who had nothing else to do, had no one else to live up with. That's kind of what Ron was saying. He could get everything perfect, but it wouldn't matter because someone else did it first. And it's even worse for Ginny because whatever Ron does, Ron has Quidditch. Ginny has Quidditch. It's Ron's Quidditch. It's also Charlie's Quidditch. It's also Fred and George's Quidditch. It's also everyone else's Quidditch. So everyone, Harry and Ginny have had so much stacked against them that they're just carrying on their shoulders, trying to not let everything fall. Which is why they're also so good for each other, because they both need the person that the other person is. Someone that can really be thinking for each other and someone that can really kind of be there. And of course, anyone else could be there, literally, but Harry is really the only person for Ginny who knows what Ginny is feeling, and Ginny is really the only person for Harry this is confusing. Ginny knows what Harry's thinking, and Harry knows what Ginny's thinking. I probably should have just said that. I'm actually reading The Half-Blood Prince right now, and I think that point is made especially clear by Harry really kind of realizing his attraction to Ginny in this book. I think it's described this like monster in his chest that's like really happy when Ginny had an argument with Dean and all of that kind of stuff, and then it's like really mad and like growling when Harry sees Ginny and Dean kind of really being really friendly. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I think the point that Harry is really like the monster is really excited by is when he takes the Felix Felicis to go down and get the memory from Slughorn and see Hagrid. And he passes Dean and Ginny, and he accidentally brushes Ginny, and then Ginny turns and goes I don't need any help getting to the Portrait Hall, and they start an argument, and then Harry's like, oh yeah. That's kind of a long-winded explanation, but my point for this story is they are very much like each other, and they definitely are good. They work well together. But that brings me all the way back around to her role. What role does Ginny play, and how does she play? There's so many different things that we could kind of interpret from her, from the story, but I think the biggest one is that she is just really struggling. She is really struggling, and she really wants to get back on top. Not of everyone else, but back on top of herself, right? Because in the 5th, 6th, even, of course, first books, she was really struggling. She just had so much on her plate and so much to do. It was really hard for her to continue going, to keep throwing coal on the fire, and to just keep on chugging. So I think those times especially were very difficult for her. And I think the first book, not the first book, the first year for Ginny was one of the harder ones. Because not only was she struggling, with Lord Voldemort, she was also not able to tell anyone. Every time she tried, Ron was there, kind of shoving her over. Every time she tried, she was too scared. She couldn't say it in time. She was a first year, and she had no one to go to. She didn't have the courage to go to Professor McGonagall or Professor Dumbledore. She couldn't tell Percy because Ron was always there, and she couldn't tell Harry because she was too embarrassed to talk to Harry. She was powerless in that book. There's the word. I've been thinking about that one for a while. She was powerless in her first year. So I think that's really where her struggles lie. She is powerless in the situation that she is in. And if she continued where she was, she would likely never regain the power that she could have previously taken. Being in a family that big means she had to fight for everything, and she needed to stick up for herself and say, I want that. I don't care what you think, but I would like that, the last piece of whatever. I want the last scoop of this soup over someone else like Ron, who assumes Ginny doesn't and takes it without asking. So Ginny has to step in. She has to be her own self. She really has to look at the world not as against her, but look at the world as if challenging her to a greater battle. So if Ginny can really step up, if she can hit those curveballs, if she can really really see everything coming. I think that is really how her struggle ends. And that's really where everything comes to. She sees clarity. At the very end, Ginny really sees the end of, her journey. She sees the light at the end of the tunnel. She sees where she needs to go. And that's really where her victory is. She struggles for so long, and then she finally has a victory, and she goes to that place, and she is finally happy. But before that, it was the struggle that she was trying to get over. It was her not fitting in. It was her not feeling comfortable in her own skin. Her being the person who just couldn't get there, who eventually found her happiness and really got to the place that she was going to. So, I mean, that's her role. She's struggling, and her story is her trying to find just the right person to be with, the right life for her. So I think she eventually found it. And I think that is a pretty good explanation of Ginny's role in the story. Now that we really understand Ginny as a character and the role that she plays in the story, now I think it's important to really look at who she is in the book versus the movie. Now, this is a topic that has been strongly debated for years, and I think I definitely want to weigh in on this and just check out what's going on here, because I will say there is a big difference. And I will say that my preferred kind of Ginny, the Ginny that I see the most strength in and the most independence in, is definitely the book Ginny. I think that's a universally agreed upon fact. Now, Bonnie Wright did an amazing job, and the reunion definitely shed light on that, but I think it was not her fault. Bonnie Wright did a fantastic job, like I just said, but it was her writing, it was her position, it was the scenes that got cut and the scenes that got added that really dragged her image through the mud. And it wasn't that her character was tarnished, it was just that she didn't get shined like she did in the books. Right? It's like everyone was just kind of like a rusted penny. And the people that had the most scenes and the most screen time were the ones who got the most shine, the most, cleaning. And Ginny just got, like one or two, maybe like one or two pretty strong scenes, a movie, like one, and like two, and like zero, and like one. So she didn't really have this whole big moment. The biggest deal for her was probably the Battle of Hogwarts, probably getting married with Harry, but that was way long gone. She was too late for the movies, for the story, for the arc to be complete. And I think the books is really where that kind of comes to light. Of course, the books are always more detailed than the movies in any scenario. So I think that really helped Ginny because it was detail, it was clarity, it was just the amount of stuff that had to do with Ginny that was the problem for Ginny in the movie. But I think we got a lot more of a Minerva Molly Weasley in the books. And I think that's something that I've just kind of always known in myself, but I haven't really thought about it until now this whole week. And I was just thinking, I always imagined the strong Ginny to be in the books. Why is that? And I just, a minute ago, I swear to you, a minute ago, I was thinking, Ginny is the strongest, book character. Her movie persona is much, different than her book. And I was like, why? Why do I think that? Then I remembered I was kind of thinking of the lines that she was saying, the scenes that she was in, and the only strong things that she says and the only big moments that she has, I'm imagining her in the audiobook. I am reading, in my home, and I am that's just where I see her strength coming from, the books and me. Audiobooks. I love audiobooks. And so I've whenever I can get a Harry Potter audiobook, I do, and I always listen to those. And I Jim Dale. I mean, come on, this is all right. Side tangent. You have to go get Jim Dale's Harry Potter on an audiobook, a CD, if that's a thing anymore. I don't know. I'm sure there's an app you can find. I'm not paid to say this, but Libby is one of my favorites, so you can probably download that, and it's definitely for free, but there's a bit of a wait on Harry Potter books. Again, not paid to say this, but I love Libby so much, so get Libby in your app store. But anyway, back to the discussion of why I think Ginny in the books is stronger. Whenever I would think that was a really good Ginny line, it's always Jim Dale saying it as Ginny. That's always where I think of it, as Ginny just kind of being strong, flipping her hair, walking away in like I was saying, I'm reading the Half-Blood Prince right now, and when Harry first got to the Burrow, she did a really good impression of Fleur. She was walking out, and did a really good impression of Molly to Ron, and she just really is really being more comfortable with herself and accepting her difference in the family. That I think is really where that her strength comes from, especially in the 5th, 6th books. Of course, her struggle was mounting. Like her pile of paperwork was just getting higher and higher and higher. But she was also getting better at her job, and she could really push all that aside, and she could just get through it a lot faster. She could really divide up her brain into dealing with stress, dealing with her relationships, dealing with herself, and dealing with other people. So she really was much better at just managing herself. I mean, it sounds weird, but she was much better at managing herself in the 5th and 6th books. And especially, I like I was saying, she has some really good moments with like imitation, making jokes, making people laugh, making Ron jump. That's just really where she was feeling comfortable accepting herself and really, projecting the image of confidence, because she felt confident finally for the first time. She could really show that she felt confident. She could really show the world that is what she was feeling, and that is who she was. So the book, and again, this all happened in the book. All of the things that Ginny does well are all in the book. And in the Half-Blood Prince movie, Harry at the Burrow, it burns down. I mean, that's a big change to make. But Ginny is just there. She hugs Harry, ties his shoes, and then kisses him, maybe. I don't know. That's it. I mean, that's all that happens. It's this whole thing that Ginny just doesn't do anything. But in the book version of Harry going to the Burrow for the first time, Harry is kind of in his bed, and then everyone just kind of barges in. And she's kind of a welcome party. And Ginny really feels comfortable expressing her ideas. Yes, it is annoyance, and yes, I mean, it is being pretty mean to Molly. But I think that is really an important thing to kind of recognize and mention, that Ginny felt comfortable enough to, with herself, to risk having the wrath of Molly Weasley, which I mean is a very confident. And that's just an example from the most recent I can remember, because I'm, if you didn't know this, because I haven't said it yet, I'm reading The Half-Blood Prince. So that's really where I see it, and there's a big divide. But movie Ginny, like I was saying, nothing. There's nothing there. In the book, she was strong, she was confident, she had so much depth to her, but in the movie, she was, almost bland. She had nothing to her, and there was no struggle there, there's no challenge. She wasn't climbing a mountain, she was just taking a walk, right? There's nothing there for her to conquer. She just wanted to get with Harry. I mean, that was her challenge, but that's not a big Harry Potter challenge. It's just that's something that you could just see on the street. It's something that just happens every day. And Ginny is not this whole different person who has this confidence, is trying to build up this strength for herself in the movies. That's her in the books. In the movies, she is just this bland person who's just yeah, hi, how's it going? My friend Luna, yeah. It's I just don't get it, how she can be so powerful in one book and then just so not even there in the movie. Now I think we should talk about her strengths and her weaknesses. Who is Ginny? What is Ginny good at? What is she not? What is horrible inside of her? What is eating at her soul? And what can Ginny branch out in, and how does she do it? So many questions to be answered and so many skills to be looked at. I think we should start with one of her biggest strengths. And her biggest strength is probably, there's not a word for it, but her biggest strength is her ability to kind of push aside all of the self-consciousness in her mind and everything that is stopping her from, being who she is and just going for it. Just having no bad inhibition in her mind and just really, really going for an impression, really making her point and not caring if she hurts feelings. Sometimes that's bad. With her friends, with someone she knows, with her professors, she would never say something rude, but to Ron, sometimes that's what he needs to hear. Sometimes Ron needs a good talking to. So I think Ginny is very, very good at just really kind of pushing forward and staying strong. Unfortunately, that also comes with one of her biggest weaknesses, and that is she doubts herself a lot. Because one of her biggest strengths is her ability to just forget all of that, it also has to mean that it's one of her biggest weaknesses, that she thinks of herself, she thinks how other people think of her. And I mean, everyone does, of course, that's just kind of how humans work. But I think, especially with Ginny, she has to look out for herself, she has to look behind her back, always. And that really makes her develop a very strong case of doubt, which she did. And the way I kind of see it is, Ginny is just kind of like a rubber band, not emotionally wise, but her strength is kind of like a rubber band. When it's not stretched, she is not showing her strength, she is not, kind of going for it. When she does, the rubber band is pulled, and she cannot go too far or it will snap, and she cannot rein it in. She cannot go bad, she once she stops stretching the rubber band, she can't make it smaller. And that's really where the doubt comes in, right? She takes up a certain amount of space, and she is Ginny. She can be more than that, but she cannot be less than that. She cannot be less than who she is. So Ginny is always there, and she knows that she always has a presence within the common room, with whoever she's with Harry, with Ron, with her family, with her friend, with Luna, with whoever. She's always there. People always know that she is there, and she has this role as Ginny, and people expect her to have, whatever funny quip she may have, and that's good. It's good that it is expected that Ginny will do something that is funny, that is, that deserves the attention that it gets. But that also puts pressure on Ginny if she doesn't say it at the right moment, if she doesn't say the right thing. Her tarnished penny will become even more so. And she really has to recognize in herself that messing up and laughing at herself and just kind of making mistakes that everyone would is just what everyone does. And I think the doubt and the pushing herself forward is just who she is. That's Ginny's thing. She pushes herself, she goes for it, she puts all of her chips in. But there is such room for failure there. She has no protective blanket after that. After she puts herself out there is no going back, right? She is who she is. And like I was saying before, she can always make herself bigger. She can always prove to the world that she is something more. But once she's done that, there is no way she can go back. She's not less than who she is. She has to be more. And if she is more, then she has to top it. She has to keep getting better and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's funny. I was just thinking about, while I was saying that, I was thinking about the new docuseries, the new season on Netflix, Cheer. Again, I am giving all this free advertising. Not paid to say this, but Cheer, great show. Pretty far in, and it is fantastic. And I was just thinking how, this cheerleading is very similar to how Ginny thinks, right? The leader of this cheer group, Monica, is really trying to win the big cheerleading competition, and she has to make it bigger than the last year. She has to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and once they have gone past a certain point, they just can't stop. They can get worse, because everyone is constantly moving forward, getting better and better and better, and Ginny has to move with that, and the cheerleading has to move with that, and there's no going back. There's no mutual decision to just decide, I'm not going to do better this year. I'm going to do it exactly the same. There's always that urge to do better. There's always Ginny there trying to improve what she did. There's always this new thing that she has to do and continue doing whatever she was. It's a struggle for her to continue to be the person she is and to continue to observe the way that she does and just kind of keep her affairs in order. Everything that she does relies on herself. And if she fails, then her entire life falls apart. There's no one there to catch her. I'm sure Molly will try, but no one else will. She is just there. She is a floating board in the ocean. She's trying to keep afloat. And if she sinks, I think she will sink for good. But if she manages to get to shore, I think she will never wash back into the sea ever again. That's a pretty good place to stop. I just hit 30 minutes on the recording. I think that is a pretty good place. Got a metaphor down. Got 30 minutes. I've checked all the boxes. I think we're ready to wrap up. This pretty much just goes without saying. I have so much more. I'm gonna do a part 2. Ginny is such an amazing character. We have to keep digging deeper. So, gonna do something else. How many did we get through? What, like 4 4 talking points. Yeah, we got 2 through 4. I have 9 in total, so we are definitely going to do a part 2. Not a part 3. I never do part 3. So part 2, I think, is definitely a good thing to do. So look out for this part 2. It's going to be a good one. I'm not going to put it out next week, but maybe the week after that. I mean, I don't want to leave you hanging, with this. So it's going to be soon. I think not next week. Maybe not even the week after that. I mean, I should check my schedule. I don't know what episodes I've planned, but I'm sure I can figure it out. You know what? I think I'm gonna make the episode in 2 weeks. I'm gonna have an episode coming up. Why not? Why not just tell you? I mean, it's not a big secret. I'm not planning it. It's not a surprise. So here is the episode plan. I'm flipping the pages. So I have a Quizmaster planned. Oh, that's fun. And I have another plot holes episode. So with this, I mean, email me. I don't know. I don't know what you want. If you don't tell me what's going on with you, I don't know. So I think I've got a Quizmaster, I've got a plot holes episode, and this part 2. I think I'm gonna go. Oh man, actually, I could probably do this part next week because with the Quizmaster, I could probably do this part 2 next week, and then I could do the plot holes, and then I could do the Quizmaster, just so there's not Quizmaster and Breakdown in the same spot. Or I could do the Quizmaster next week. I mean, I don't know. I really have no idea. Email me, ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. That's ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com, or at ThePotterDiscussion on Instagram. Again, the 2 links in the show notes for a voice submission or text submission for anything you want to hear or say on the show. ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com. Just send me something. I need some signs of life. I want to know what's going on. Because funnily enough, if you didn't know this, I don't know what you're thinking. It's a pretty common misconception that I actually can read your mind. So I need you to, I need you to send me something because I want to deliver for you. So if you don't tell me what you want, I don't know what to deliver. So definitely contact me. It'll only take a minute, and you'll get the episode that you want to hear. If you didn't hear the episode you want, just tell me what episode you want to hear, and I'll make it for you. It is almost a guarantee that any episode you suggest, I will definitely do, as long as it's not. If it fits with this podcast, I'm going to do it. I mean, that's pretty solid. So if there's a topic you want me to research for you, if there's any episode you want to hear, just send it to me. Honestly, I would love to hear from you, and I'd absolutely love to do the episodes that you want me to do. Wow, again, that's a great place to that's a great place to stop. Again, I'm saying one more time, ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com and at ThePotterDiscussion on Instagram. I mean, that's it. That's all I gotta say. As always, remember, happipiness can be found even in the darkest of times if the one only remembers to turn on the light. Thank you, ThePotterDiscussion@gmail.com, and I will see you later.
This was the Potter Discussion.